I don't know, for me personally, I just always get ideas for songs like walking around and stuff, or if I have a guitar, start to write something, and then I love the process of arranging and recording a song. Like, well, in the past, it's been for me like there's been a difference between capturing like performance and then building like a record, like the way like a Beatle record would be, or the way a Beach Boy record would be. But that's what I'm mainly interested in, is writing a song and then recording it and just making as many of those as possible, just so that I can listen to them.
Yeah, I think just having as many records that we feel fully proud of as we can, and writing as many songs as we can, when we feel like it, which is, we often feel like writing songs.
Yeah, we have a lot of songs. I also like to record his voice and my voice. I figure that our voices won't always be the same. I mean, they're not always the same even the next year, So it's kind of cool to capture the sound, because he makes an interesting sound,
I think we'd like to do more.
Yeah, as many as we can, really.
Yeah.
And then we'd like to do our own records too.
Yeah.
So that just volume, quantity over quality.
Not over quality.
No, but it's just, we just enjoy it. That's what we enjoy the most, is making records.
We don't want to ever be out of practice in either performing or recording.
Yeah, but it would really only just be so that we could do things with a singular identity and kind of see how it goes when he records by himself or when I record by myself, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of just a fun, different approach rather than recording with each other. Got to give it a full 10, the full 10.
Yeah.
For effort.
10 stars for effort. It definitely caters to our own tastes completely, which not every record we've done has.
Yeah, because some albums might have like a hint of insecurity, or kind of like an air of wanting people to like them or something like that. But I think we were really focused on ourselves and what we like. So.
Yeah, definitely. So. That's what we both felt. I think we maybe more feel that way about this last record, but the one before it is kind of like more geared toward like my style, and then this one in general is maybe a little bit more geared toward Michael's style.
Well, I think that it's like with both the records, the performances and the recordings and stuff, and the songs too. There's not anything technically wrong with them, and there's nothing that I could say like, I think they're good recordings and solid recordings, but stylistically maybe now, just only being 2 years from that, or it feels like I'm interested in different things, And the last record is still totally, I like all the styles and stuff, the kind of, the way it comes together, just on a aesthetic level,
Well,
yeah.
Especially because some of the last tunes that we finished for the album we weren't as sick of as the songs that we started with.
So sometimes it's hard to see what you prefer, just because you're not as sick of it, or what is actually going to play well with people. But I think we knew that Golden Years would be a good single, My Golden Years song, and first song, we made it the first song on the record because it just has a commercial sound. And
I
then
think that one and How Can I Love Her More were the easiest choices for us, because we felt that they were real pop songs.
And his songs were more difficult to select.
Yeah.
The singles. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know.
It just didn't have the obvious thing. Although on the last record, we also had a song that feels like it would have been an obvious single, one of his songs called Ghosts Run Free, and we didn't make it a single, and we should have done that. So we're often wrong.
We were trying to avoid that issue on this last album. We used to do that a lot more, but we haven't done it that much on this tour, but we're,
Kind of in
we're
an-
wanting to do that more
In an
now.
effort to just kind of not get sick of them before we get in the studio and capture the kind of excitement. Yeah, we've kind of avoided playing them so much because we used to do that, like he says, but
Yeah, and then
it
by the
kind of
time we
colors
got
the recording too much because then you don't have that
drive to record
drive
the
to
song.
record it.
Yeah.
But I think it works for some things and it doesn't work for other things. It'd be good, if we knew we were going to get into the studio that like the next month
Couple
or something like
weeks,
that.
yeah.
Then we could do it and then figure it out and it would help. But we never know when we're going to have time to do that. So. We wouldn't have had such specific taste. Like we tend to really go for like beat music, kind of like, and because my dad was really into that, and then kind of flowery.
Orchestral,
Ornate
pop.
Baroque. Those kind of our two favorite things, and I think that's kind of that just has to do with our upbringing. Things that stem from Beatles and Beach Boys and stuff like that, and then everything in between appeals to us really a lot.
I know it's true.
Well, I liked it. We always heard the demo, on YouTube for a long time. So, I guess the typical complaint that a lot of people have and that we had was that we were used to the bridge of the song, which they cut, but it was fine.
I think it would have been
cool.
perfect with the bridge. The video is funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I only watched it.
Yeah, I only watched
One
it once.
time,
I
It
thought
was
it
awesome.
kind of funny when Paul was dancing
Yeah.
with John, like
That was cute.
hello, goodbye.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool.
Fuck it. It was
I
awesome.
got full body chills.
I would use AI. I would use it to isolate stems.
Oh, yeah, to get.
Like there's things
Yeah.
that you might have captured just on a cassette or something like that, and if it gets advanced to the point where you can extract stems, which I think it is.
Yeah, it is.
It's like
It's
it
used
gives
that
you
way
the
all
option to mix something. I mean, I'm like I think that AI for restoration and all this kind of stuff, like to take Lennon's voice and clean it up really well and stuff. I don't see the problem with that.
Yeah.
It's the same with digital recording, all this stuff. If somebody can use the tools well, I think that's all
I
that
think
matters.
when
I
I'm-
mean, somebody
when
could
I'm-
shoot something on film. It could look horrible if they don't know how to do it.
When I have have destroyed my voice, and I have like a much worse voice.
Yeah.
I'll use AI to make myself sound good again.
Yeah. It's a good
I-
idea.
But I might.
If you don't tell
Right
anybody.
now, I would love to not have to do that, but hopefully that's not necessary. It's kind of cool.
We've
I
made
think it's
some
kinda
fake
cool.
songs for fun on some app, and it's always like there's a
It
lot
always ends up sounding like Simon and Garfunkel or like specifically another band.
what do you mean
Like
by that?
I remember we did one and it sounded exactly like The Association.
Yeah, I don't know that it actually does a good job of doing the voices like that, where it's 60s stuff like Simon and Garfunkel or The Association, where it's like a couple guys singing unison and stuff, and then they'll break into harmony.
Yeah.
Because for some reason it's got an anonymous sound
Yeah.
to the vocal, so it doesn't have. But no, I was just gonna say that it's kind of fun, and sometimes you put in a prompt, and you're like, this is a pretty good song. But there's something about the lore of like a recording that somebody made, or especially that some random people made, like in the Midwest in the 60s or something. There's some kind of lore about that is colors how you listen to the record, so it's kind of, I'm sure that
So when you
people,
know
when
something's
when
AI,
you
you
prompt
don't listen
some,
to you don't.
yeah,
you
you kind of don't
the way-
enjoy it that much. You just don't
Yeah.
like it as much. But it is kind of fun little game to do.
Well, this newest record definitely, I feel
More
like, is
celebratory
more
kind
of
of.
a celebratory record. The record before it, I thought that had parts of it that were a little bit more maybe anxious for the future, but it's never like, it's usually capturing like an emotional moment, you know.
It's not like a philosophy or something like
it's
that.
not
One
like a-
song is usually just like a
yeah, like
a day or
yeah.
something, or an hour or something like that.
So, yeah, there are no sort of like declarations of like, this is what I feel about this and that, you know. So that kind of prevents it from being all that like concerned about the future when it's like, it's more present.
And we also kind of, I mean, personally, I don't go in as much for artists or musicians or songwriters who are prophesizing and stuff. I don't usually
You just don't.
connect that much with people
Yeah, vibe
who
with it.
do that. So that's not really what I'm listening to. So then, and kind of what you listen to comes out, right? I think. Music first, rather than lyrics.
Yeah, I
sure.
would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that we do like words and lyrics and put work into them and stuff. I think it's just, but we are definitely music first people, right? With
Yeah.
melody, that's kind of our main thing. No, we really don't. Always.
Yeah, we usually argue a little bit, but you know, we have stretches where we really are, you know, fitting well together, you know, and also
Yeah.
like just really in sync.
There's a lot of busy work involved with the recording process, like manual stuff that's not that fun to do, and even in a way, when we're recording something like cellos or strings or something, and Brian's playing it all or playing trumpets and stuff, that's even this kind of thing that's a bit of a, what would you call that? A drag?
Yeah.
No, but it's a bit of a, like, you know, I don't know. It's difficult is the point. And
Because it takes a long time.
and so that kind of thing, it breeds a lot of frustration and kind of like impatience, and then we can get at each other's throats when that happens. Yeah. It's interesting because it's difficult to hand things off to people. It usually doesn't work out well every time. We've done it in the past.
Not every time, like the Ambar Navarro, who did like some of the, like 2 of the videos for the last record, did a great job. But like, I mean, that her aesthetic was really good for that material.
Well, the other thing is
But
too,
we can't
as
afford to do that all the time.
yeah,
necessarily.
that's true. And then also as we go along, we seem to meet more people who can help with different things and kind of fill in these like we run into a lot of technical issues and stuff with the analog, and then our studio mate / tech / engineer is a guy called Paul D. Millar, and he has a project called Slugbug, and he constantly we run into things, and he just comes in and helps us out. So it helps speed up the process. There's always the like,
And also like Ava Chambers
Right.
from Tchotchke
yes,
will always help us with all the art
all the
stuff that
art
we do. So
and
we do
and all
end up
the
having a lot
record
of help.
design and all that stuff in the photos and stuff. So we have a lot of help, but
But overseeing everything is kind of annoying. Like, I mean, I would say that like
we also
would
work very
probably-
closely with our manager.
Yeah,
you know.
but we probably in the future will do like less videos and try to like maybe like 2 videos rather than 4. Like,
Yeah, we'll try to do what's more important, which is making more records, and then maybe try to put out more live videos because they're just easier.
yeah, live
Easier
stuff
to
is-
do and stuff.
Yeah.
We are trying to figure out a way to make it less consuming, that side of things, because ultimately it's less important to make that kind of content.
Yeah,
you know,
the
it's
clip
like it's
the clip doesn't feel like
our
like
art.
an eternal thing, whereas the music feels like it could possibly last a little bit longer.
Eternally.
Not for until until people get bored of it.
Yeah, I think it's disposable. I get bored of things quick. we were playing Coachella. It's like, do you know what year that was? 2017,
Yes.
2018. And we brought Todd Rundgren up to play Couldn't I Just Tell You, the song. And he came up to play the song, and it went really well. And then we went backstage. My father was there, my mom and my dad were there. My dad's a musician, and we were really nervous around Todd because we didn't know him. And the first thing that my dad said when we walked in the dressing room was, that was really great, but except like during the break, one of you guys made a little mistake there. I don't know if it was you or Todd, but it was like, and I was like, Dad, come on, Todd, don't say that. Like, but thankfully he didn't hear it. Anyway, that's my story. I'm not, it's not great, but it's a story. It involves a celebrity.
Okay. Well, when I was starting out in the business, I used to send a lot of songs to people, and I would send, songs to like, indie producers. I would send them to big names, just whoever I could get their contact information. And to his credit, I was just thinking of like a producer. I can't do it. Okay, no, that's my second attempt. I can't do it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be able to come up with a fake story.
But
I'm just not smart enough.
I tried. That's the most you can do in life.